Good morning, everyone. I am in the house, big house. The little one's outside on the stroller, napping. I've got the door open. She's right out there. Yes, it's very good and it's kind of overcast. It's a nice temperature out there. Yes, beautiful. And she's sleeping like a baby should. So this morning, I tried to make the video with her. I tried twice. It didn't work. And I did it just to see, is it possible to do your own thing while you're taking care of a baby, taking care of a toddler, taking care of a child? No, you can't. You absolutely cannot. If I would have shared both of the videos, you would have seen why. Oh, she did quite well. But I couldn't concentrate really on what I was doing. And she wasn't really all that happy. She was all right, but not all that happy, because she could tell I was doing something else besides taking care of her. Interesting. We ended up going for a nice walk and loved it. We were out there for about 30 minutes. Then I could tell, she's getting a little bit, okay, she's kind of had enough. So we turned around and found a crabapple tree, which is in full bloom right now with lots of crab apples on it. And crabapple jelly is wonderful. It's the best thing ever. It is really good. And have no doubt that crabapple syrup would also be really good on pancakes or with some ice as a drink. Yes? Yeah. Juice. So anyway, there wasn't anybody there, so I couldn't, again, I'll have to see, will I meet these people in the future on walks so I could ask them, hey, could I? Because it looks like most people don't do anything with crab apples, but they're actually really, really delicious if they are preserved in certain ways. Found some seeds too of two bushes that I thought, wow, these are great. These are so beautiful. They would look good in my daughter's front yard. Yes, I got some seeds, and so we'll see. I'm going to try and see and pull them first in pots. Yes, they look kind of a little like butterfly bushes, not quite the ones that I know, but a little bit similar. Anyway, so learned, and she was, boy, as soon as I just started concentrating on her, this is our day together with her and us, she was fine. She was completely fine, happiest baby ever, and she was up for hours and hours, which is kind of new again too, and she is out now. So here, now I have my own time. She's asleep, and that doesn't mean this one will work either, because she could wake up in the middle, and guess what? You'll have to wait again. Anyway, so who comes first? Shouldn't be that difficult to figure out. And if you're trying to do things that while you're taking care of a baby or a young child, this and that, and just put it in front of the TV, you get so used to. I've seen that too. I'm 2 years old. They're so used to being sat down to watch stuff. Okay. It's not like these moments last forever, right? Children do grow up. All right, let's get going here. We are in the second book of Maccabees 10. The purification of the temple. Maccabees and his companions, under the Lord's guidance, restored the temple and the city and pulled down the altars erected by the foreigners in the marketplace as well as the shrines. They purified the sanctuary and built another altar. Then, striking fire from flints and using this fire, they offered the first sacrifice for 2 years, burning incense, lighting the lamps, and setting out the loaves. When they had done this, prostrating themselves on the ground, They implored the Lord never again to let them fall into such adversity, but if they should ever sin, to correct them with moderation and not to deliver them over to blasphemous and barbarous nations. Now, what does that sound like? Right? Well, if they should sin again, now the Israelites should have been under the guidance of God now for several generations, quite a few generations. Had good guidance from prophets, not kings, but prophets. They did, yeah. And the prophets had good guidance from God, but what did they do with it? And here now, rather than, we're not sinning again. We are going to stick now to God's laws and His guidance. We're done with this. They're already, what are they doing? Yes? Well, but if we do sin, see, we've done all this for you. And so if we do sin, just be merciful with us. Okay. Like he had anything to do with before. Just saying. That I find, again, that's very typical attitude here of the Israelites, it seems, or the leaders at least. I don't know. I'm supposed to be getting some of the commoner stuff here in the second book of Maccabees. That's what it's kind of said to begin with. But I feel like it's not happening. Oh, look, and I'm finally getting my third cup of coffee. Delicious. Okay. This day of the purification of the temple fell on the very day on which the temple had been profaned by the foreigners, the 25th of the same month, Chislev. They kept 8 festal days with rejoicing in the manner of the Feast of Shelters, remembering how, not long before, at the time of the Feast of Shelters, they had been living in the mountains, in caverns like wild beasts. Like who? Who did that? Who was in the caverns? And in the desert? Then carrying Thyruses' leafy boughs and palms, they offered hymns to him who had brought the cleansing of his own holy place to a happy outcome. Oh, looky there. Leafy boughs and palms. They also decreed by public edict, ratified by vote, that the whole Jewish nation should celebrate those same days every year. Really? They had a public vote? A public edict? Okay, what does that mean exactly? Ratified by vote. Who did that? Kind of sounds like all the people did. I don't think that's what it means. Oh, interesting. Okay. Super chapter 6. The struggle of Judas against the neighboring peoples and against Lysias, minister of Antiochus V. Now here it's Judas again. Here it starts with Maccabees, which we also know is Judas, right? Okay. Why the different names? Make it a little more confusing. One can say, well, no, that was Maccabees. Well, Maccabees is Judas. No, Judas and Maccabees are not the same ones. Yeah, they are. They have 2 different names. They're going by 2 different names. Why? Why is that? I'm not getting that either. Maybe a Jewish thing? I don't know. It wasn't to begin with. Moses was known as Moses, and Aaron was known as Aaron. I know Jesus is known as Jesus. Right? Do you have another name? Don't know. The reign of Antiochus V, early years. Such were the circumstances attending the death of Antiochus, styled Epiphanes. Okay. Our task now is to unfold the history of Antiochus Eupator, son of that godless man, and briefly to relate the evil effects of the wars. On coming to the throne, this prince put at the head of affairs a certain Lysias, the general officer commanding, I can't say this right, Coele, Syria, and Phoenicia. whereas Ptolemy, known as Macron, two names again, and the first person to govern the Jews justly, had done his best to govern them peacefully to make up for the wrongs inflicted on them in the past. Oh. Denounced in consequence to Eupator by the friends of the king, he heard himself called traitor at every turn, for having abandoned Cyprus, which had been entrusted to him by Philometor, for having gone over to Antiochus Epiphanes, and for having shed no luster on his illustrious office. He committed suicide by poisoning himself. Whoa! So Ptolemy, though, also then was under the rule of which Antiochus? Then he was under the rule of the son. He wanted to do right by the Jews. And what happens? You know what? Gorgias and Idumaean fortresses. Gorgias now became general of the area. He maintained a force of mercenaries and a continued state of war with the Jews. What? So the wars weren't over. Didn't we just read about the purification of the temple? So that's all done. Okay, you know what? I do not go there. At the same time, the Idumaeans, who controlled important fortresses, were harassing the Jews, welcoming outlaws from Jerusalem, and endeavoring to maintain a state of war. Welcoming outlaws from Jerusalem? Maccabees and his men, after making public supplication to God, so Maccabees here, that's Judas, entreating him to support them, oh, that's why, began operations against the Idumean fortresses. Vigorously pressing home their attack, they seized possession of these vantage points, beating off all who fought on the ramparts. They slaughtered all who fell into their hands, accounting for no fewer than 20,000. Oh, what an achievement. 9,000 at least took refuge in two exceptionally strong towers with everything they needed to withstand a siege, whereupon Maccabeus left Simon and Joseph with Zacchaeus and his forces in sufficient numbers to besiege them, and himself went off to other places requiring his attention. But Simon's men were greedy for money and allowed themselves to be bribed by some of the men in the towers. Simon. Well, we all know Simon was supposed to be in charge of all this. Okay. Accepting 70,000 drachmas, they let a number of them escape. When Maccabeus was told what had happened, he summoned the people's commanders and accused the offenders of having sold their brothers for money by releasing their enemies to fight them. Having executed them as traitors, he at once proceeded to capture both towers. Successful in all that he undertook by force of arms, in these two fortresses he slaughtered more than 20,000 men. Again. So what? Altogether it was 40,000 now? No idea. Judas defeats Timotheus and captures Gezer. Timotheus, who had been beaten by the Jews once before, now assembled an enormous force of mercenaries, mustering cavalry from Asia in considerable numbers, and soon appeared in Judea, expecting to conquer it by force of arms. But he's been beaten before, so he hadn't learned his lessons. Okay. At his approach, Maccabeus and his men made their supplications to God, sprinkling earth on their heads and putting sackcloth round their waists. Prostrating themselves on the terrace before the altar, they begged him to support them and to show himself the enemy of their enemies, the adversary of their adversaries, as the law clearly states. Which law clearly states that? After these prayers, they armed themselves and advanced a fair distance from the city, halting when they were close to the enemy. As the first light of dawn began to spread, the two sides joined battle, the one having as their pledge of success and victory not only their own valor, but their recourse to the Lord, the other making their own order their mainstay in the fight. When the battle was at its height, the enemy saw five magnificent men appear from heaven on horses with golden bridles and put themselves at the head of the Jews, surrounding Maccabees and screening him with their own armor, kept him unscathed, while they rained arrows and thunderbolts on the enemy until, blinded and confused, they scattered in complete disorder. Yeah, I'll believe that. 20,500 infantry and 600 cavalry were slaughtered. Timotheus himself fled to a strongly guarded citadel called Gezer, where Chaereas was in command. For 4 days, Maccabees and his men eagerly besieged the fortress, while the defenders, confident in the security of the place, hurled fearful blasphemies and godless insults at them. At daybreak on the 5th day, 20 young men of Maccabees' forces, fired with indignation at the blasphemies, manfully assaulted the wall with wild courage, cutting down everyone they encountered. 20 guys. Yeah, right. Others, in a similar scaling operation, took the defenders in the rear and set fire to the towers, lighting pyres on which they burned the blasphemers alive. The first, meanwhile, breaking open the gates, let the rest of the army in, and at their head captured the town. Timotheus had hidden in a storage well, but they killed him with his brother Chaereas and Apollophanes. When all this was over, with hymns and thanksgiving, they blessed the Lord, who had shown such great kindness to Israel and given them the victory. Hallelujah. Wow. Okay, that's it. That was 10 in Maccabees. You know, now, right, the kind of sources that we have when to see if something's true or not. Though now, with everything that you can do with a video or a picture, you don't really know if it's the truth either, right? Yes? And you can splice videos together now, and only unless you pay really good attention to it, you'll never know they were spliced together, right? Yes? And so, well, what's the truth and what's not? But in any case, right, is it easier today to tell if something's the truth or not? Because we have such direct, per se, access to it. But then again, right, that can be altered as well. At that time, how did these stories all go from place to place? And how did they end up eventually in the hands of the people who wrote them down and put them in the Bible here? How? Mouth to mouth, right? Yes? Even though, again, as detailed as in some instances these stories are, how come it does not mention that person who was right there at the war, writing everything down exactly on how it happened and who that was? Because it never happened. So all this happens, and then here is, wow, that for some reason, and there was, okay, well, so here was Judas, and he had 3,000 people, maybe 10,000 people, and they were actually attacking, say, that would have been the truth, a town or fortresses with maybe 100 in it. But that's not that difficult to slaughter them all then, right? But, so that would have been maybe the truth. But here, and then it goes on, but here, hey, did you hear? Did you hear what the Jews did again? Judas did? He had just a few men, and he managed to slaughter 40,000 of the enemy. You know how things escalate, right? Yes? And then when the story actually comes back to the person that it happened to, goes, no, I didn't I didn't do anything in that number, which the numbers just seemed to get greater and greater, where it was needed, and depleted where it was needed. And it gets back to the origin of the person who's actually was the story, was part of the story. And I go, no, actually, that's not what happened. No, I'm not sure where you got that from, but that's not what happened. Yes. Well, anyway, so there it is. But I think, again, what we're being given here, first of all, some really detailed stuff with the numbers of the people, the cavalry even, and the horses, and then suddenly that miraculous thing with the 5 horsemen coming from the sky, right? Yeah? What really happened there? Right? Just asking, because I don't believe that. No way. Maybe they suddenly had a great hailstorm. I don't know. Well, in any case. But the one thing, again, the reason it's in the Bible, because according to the story, God very much approves of war, slaughtering people. But if it's the enemy might think you're the enemy as well. So, I think we've read enough to know that neither side is right. Okay? Just saying. Well, anyway, it's raining out there now, so, which is wonderful. The air will be wonderful out there. It'll be wonderful for her. Of course, she's undercover. Yes. I'm going to clean the kitchen. I've got to fix something for lunch for my daughter when she comes home for lunch. And then we'll see how the rest of the day goes. Yes. No, I don't make any plans. I'm taking care of her. It's not possible. Can't make plans. You just go as it goes. Yeah. And her nap times are changing. How much she's eating changes. What she likes to do now changes. Yes. So it's every day. It's you just wake up in the morning going, well, it's going to be another day of discoveries on how the little one will be happy, and how she's doing another thing. The other day she found her toes. It was so funny to watch. She found her toes. She's getting more dexterous with her fingers. Yes. Beautiful. Every day. Every day is just a day of discoveries when it comes to her, watching her, and then the care, the different kind of care, the little bit of different kind of things on how to do things with her. Is also part of that. Yes. So, I think that's also, that would be one of God's plans, wouldn't it? Yes, where he wants to be a part of that. Why would you rather, or why do people rather watch TV or get their cell phones or anything else that's not necessary at the moment? Why'd they rather do that than play with their children? Huh? Listen to their children. Huh? Teach their children. Yeah, right. I know there are a lot of good parents out there, but there's also quite a few who are lacking when it comes to that. Yes? So it is. All right. That's all I have to share this morning. And it all went peaceful. I did this at the right time, didn't I? Now I did it at the right time. I was given the time to do so. Yes? Okay. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Spirit World. May Heavenly Parent bless and protect you and embrace you with love. And I will, God willing, talk to you tomorrow.